You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals Network. Also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, the Storm Tracker podcast, on all platforms. And, of course, subscribe to CanesCounty.com. Use the promo code Miami30 for the first 30 days for free. And today I've got my guy, Brandon Odoi from footballhotbed.com, joining with me. How you doing today, Brandon?
Good. What's up, Marcus?
Good. Just, I feel like I need this bye week too, just like Miami's going to have this week. But kind of wanted to just discuss the Hurricanes right now. Canes are 4-0.
Yeah.
I predicted that to happen. I actually predicted 5-0. I do expect them to take care of business at home against Georgia Tech, who is a bit improved from last year, but 4-0 is 4-0, Brandon, and it's not like they were all cupcakes as well. Texas A&M is proven to be a pretty good team. They've beaten some good teams, and then Miami of Ohio beat Cincinnati, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So it's really kind of shaping up to a really solid 4-0. By national standards, and the nation's starting to recognize it too. Miami's now 18th in the country now, still behind a couple of the ACC teams in the AP poll, with Florida State still in the top 5 and Duke and North Carolina ahead of them. But what's your assessment of this 4-0 Miami Hurricanes football team? Are you believing? Do you believe?
Do I believe? To quote Deion Sanders, but I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I think 4-0 at this point. Once you get past the A&M game, everybody pretty much thinks, okay, yeah, you shouldn't lose to Miami of Ohio. You shouldn't lose to Temple. Even though that game, I don't know why it was played on the road. That's just some bad athletic directorship in previous years for Miami. But at the end of the day, 4-0 is 4-0. There's not a bad 4-0 you can have. You're 4-0, but not only are you 4-0, you're relatively healthy for the most part. You're expecting to get some guys back, some key guys back. And, you look at the television broadcast, Mesidor's on the sidelines kind of smiling and doing all kinds of things. So you wonder if he could play if he had to. We don't know the extent of any injuries, but at the end of the day, you're relatively healthy. You're playing really good football. You're putting up a lot of points, and your defense looks good. You're developing quality depth as a Hurricane team, and you're finding gems in your team that are starting to play above the level they've been playing at for years. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but it begs teasing, which is to Corey Couch. This is a kid who's a fifth-year program kid, a kid who's sort of been the Billy Goat in previous seasons and been sort of a liability. Even early on in the Texas A&M game, they tried to go at him because on film he looks like a liability, and that's one of the reasons he was able to pick, because he was getting targets. And you just have to credit Jamel Dye and that whole Lance Guidry-led defensive staff, because at the end of the day, they're developing guys you need to develop to be a championship team. And so you have to like a lot about what's happening right there in Coral Gables right now.
Yeah, fans got to love it right now. 4-0. Yeah, you can't really ask for anything more going into this bye week, but now it's big boy time, right? It's the ACC schedule, and they'll start out with Georgia Tech, and then they'll go to North Carolina, which is going to be a big game. Obviously, North Carolina ranked ahead of Miami, and then you come back home to Clemson, which is going to be a big game, and then Virginia. So we'll find out a lot about this football team here in the month of October. Last year, this team went 3-5 in the conference, and they were just not very good on a lot of fronts. But this year seems very, very different, and we'll kind of get to learn if they are truly going to challenge for this ACC title in the next upcoming weeks. I wanted to ask you, Brandon, what was your kind of projection of this team before the season starts compared to now? And Do you think this team has a legitimate shot at this conference title?
Yeah, I think you got to say they have a legitimate shot. My going into this year, I was on record as saying this is a 6-6, 7-5 ceiling team, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the offensive line now that we know is much improved was, there were so many question marks about would they gel, and would all of the chances that this staff took to improve the offensive line would they work. I was all in on Tyler Van Dyke being a system guy, meaning what Rhett Lashley ran worked for him. What was run last year, did not work. And, it just so happens that it's looking very Rhett Lashley-ish. I've said he's a system quarterback, but he's in the right system. So he's flourishing and he's doing well. And it's aided by, I think, a better offensive line, more cohesiveness, with an offensive structure. And you kind of see a little bit, there's a theme to this offense, that they're sort of developing how they get the ball, how they distribute, how they run plays. And that's a credit to Coach Dawson and what he does. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's a lot to like with Tyler. There's a lot to like with what's happening. But yeah, I was definitely in the wait and see mode with this team because there were just too many question marks. I wasn't sure what was going to happen on the front seven. Would Miami be able to pressure the football with that front seven with a lot of the departures? Would it hold up? Because it was a defensive line that wasn't very good in the first place and then lost a couple of key spots, and some young guys have to step up. What I'm noticing and what's probably leading to sort of a better outlook for the future of this season is the fact that they've developed quality depth, that guys are playing better than they were initially expected or projected to play. And then a lot of teams are not as good as we thought they were going to be. And when you gel all those things together, yeah, 6-6, 7-5 looks like an underestimation on how good this Hurricane team could be.
Yeah, the ACC schedule is not a gauntlet in any regard. I mean, even Clemson, dare I say, it looks like a really winnable game for Miami based on what they've shown so far. They've already lost 2 ACC games, and we're not even in October yet. I don't remember the last time that we've said something like that about the Clemson Tigers. So Clemson, I think, is a winnable game for the Hurricanes. I certainly think they have a chance to beat North Carolina as well. Virginia, not that good this season. Georgia Tech, their immediate game, I think they have to be a little bit just concerned coming off the bye and not having the energy that you have coming off of a game. So there's some concern of how they'll show up. But the fact that it was just announced today that it's a night game, I think that helps the Hurricanes.
That helps Miami a lot. And we know that helps because over the years, Miami fans will show up a lot more at night here for games, particularly when this team is good. That's why you got that, unbelievable, unforgettable game against Notre Dame so many years ago. When this team's good, and then you can even go back a little bit further when they knocked off Oklahoma back in the 09 era, and those type of games. You look at this Miami Hurricane team and this fan base, they rally around winners. What's happening in the city? The Dolphins are super explosive right now. And I see you representing right there, Marcus. But, we like that because this is a party culture first city. This is a city that enjoys to celebrate. If the team is going to be good, if there's a party, if there are spirits that can be, responsibly partaken in, that's going to bode well for fan support. And those are just the facts. If you're a South Floridian, you understand and know that formula. But this is what's happening with this Miami Hurricane team right now. You get Georgia Tech at home. That game has become a little bit more of a trap game now because of their performance against Wake Forest and how good they are. But you get them coming off of a bye week. So now you have an opportunity. You may see some guys that we haven't seen in several weeks. And I predicted this on my own podcast a couple of weeks ago. I said, there's really, because of that way these guys got injured and the way they're going to, have the next couple of games scheduled, there's no reason to see any of these guys again until North Carolina. Well, maybe they come back against Georgia Tech. I'm talking about Cam Kitchens, and I'm talking about, the Mesidors of the world or whatever the case may be. We don't truly know what's wrong with those guys. But at the end of the day, I don't think the ACC is as strong as it was, projected going into the season. But I would also say the same about the SEC. You know what I mean? The strongest conference to me right now looks to be the Pac-12. And they're on their last year. It's strange because Auburn's a shell of who we thought they were. They hadn't really played anybody. Texas A&M took the game completely to them. Tennessee's not who we thought they were. They got beat by what we think is a mediocre Florida team. We're not sure they're looking much better, but, still kind of barely got by Charlotte. Their game wasn't really super impressive. Then, you've got Alabama, who's had all kinds of problems. So there are a lot of teams going into the season. The point that I'm making is we may have overestimated a lot of teams and may have underestimated this Hurricane team and this roster that Mario Cristobal has put together. So we'll find out definitely in the next 2 weeks. Post-bye, but we'll find out. Georgia Tech, North Carolina. I've always said North Carolina on the road is the litmus test for this program. That is going to tell a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that matchup, not only because it's like their first conference road game of the season, but just to see the matchup with Tyler Van Dyke and Drake May. That's going to be an interesting one, because the one thing about this Hurricanes team you don't know really is, can they overcome adversity? They haven't really faced a lot of adversity. I mean, there was some in the Texas A&M game early, but then they kind of pulled away in that game. But you kind of want to see them in a situation where they have to make a throw or they have to make a stop in order to win a game. And I believe that we'll see that in that North Carolina game. And just like you said, it'll be a litmus test for them. Brandon Odoi.
I thought Texas A&M, not to step on your toes, but I thought Texas A&M was a fair amount of adversity, especially given the fact that, they jump out 17-7, if memory serves correctly, and you were at home, and, you still didn't know who everybody was. You had Tyler coming back off an injury-ridden season. You had a lot of, new components, new coordinators. So for them to jump out like that and for Miami to come back, I thought there was some significance in that. But yes, on the road at North Carolina, there should be a lot more adversity. But you never know. Maybe they come out with a game plan, and Tyler Van Dyke is who a lot of people thought he was. And that's why Bama and other people were trying to, sneak his services away from Miami, because, he's a lot better than the options that a lot of people have. And we're now seeing that.
Absolutely. Brandon Odoi joining me from footballhotbed.com. Just want to go into our next section of this podcast, which is surprise, not surprise. It's kind of been the theme already, but the surprise or not surprise aspect or way of thinking of this offense and Tyler Van Dyke. I think we were kind of in a wait and see type of mode to kind of see what this offense would look like under new offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson, and he's flourished. To be quite honest, he looks comfortable. He's able to audible out of plays. He's shown ability to run the football. I mean, he had a 37-yarder in that game against Temple, which, was the longest run for the Hurricanes in that game. So are you surprised or not surprised to see Tyler Van Dyke in this offense humming the way it is?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I definitely thought that, Van Dyke was getting a little bit more praise than he had shown the ability to garner based on his on-field play. But, a couple of things are, a result of that. And the biggest thing with Tyler Van Dyke is he's got a system that's curtailed to, the things that he does well. And so when you look at, the way this offense has been designed by Shannon Dawson, it's been designed to put him in the position to have maximum success, quick throws. He has the ability to make decisions. He gets a multitude of routes and choices. He gets an opportunity to get his most favored receiver, Xavier Restrepo in some one-on-one matchups, which he's naturally going to win a lot of times because of his route running ability. Just look at him there. Look, a clean pocket. He gets all day to throw now. He's not under duress, and he's showing his running ability of his sophomore season. So there's a ton of light about what Tyler Van Dyke has done, and he's really performing very well. So I am pleasantly surprised with him. I wasn't as high on him as a lot of people were coming into this season. Maybe it's because of things I didn't know. Maybe it's because of the fact that maybe the offense he ran last year didn't suit him. I know it didn't suit him. And then it didn't help that the offensive line was a sieve. It also didn't help that there wasn't a semblance of a running game. And I think that's the biggest thing that helps him, the fact that he's got Henry Parrish running for over 130 yards. He's got a very good-looking freshman in himself. He's now becoming a running threat, as you see the 30-plus yard run that you alluded to earlier. He just looks comfortable. He looks explosive in certain areas as far as using his his arm to throw the ball. And he's not making a ton of mistakes. And that's what you want in your quarterback. You want a guy that's a good decision maker who's distributing the ball to playmakers like Colby Young, as you see right there, having fun doing it and limiting mistakes.
Yeah, only one interception on the season for Tyler Van Dyke. He's definitely limiting the mistakes, and it's not like he's being conservative. He is pushing the ball downfield. He's taking his shots. The plays are being called for him to take those deep shots. So you kind of love that if you're a Hurricanes fan. And what you also love to see if you're a Hurricanes fan is to Corey Couch, just like you alluded to earlier, is having a pretty good start to his season. 3 interceptions, currently leading the nation or tied for the lead, and of course leading the Hurricanes in that regard. He's had, like, very similar to his career, though, he's had some up and downs this season because if you're watching this highlight, a big play that Temple got was a missed tackle or just not being in the right spot to Corey Couch wasn't. But, then he bounces back with 2 interceptions in this game. So very similar to his whole career. It's been kind of up and down. Are you surprised or not surprised with his development this season?
Yeah, I'm surprised with TC. He definitely was somebody who was a bit of a liability coming into this year. Teams have targeted him before, and he's been a guy that has, been somewhat of an enigma to figure out. He's kind of been all over the place. Believe he's in his 5th year. He had a really good second year on the field with Miami, his sophomore season, I believe, and he looked really incredible playing in that slot. He's there now. He's in that position. I just think he's been developed. The thing is, if they keep putting him out there, that means he's better than people that are not out there. And so for him, over the course of time, he's had to show flashes of things that, coaches really like to see. And so when a guy puts it all together, what I've found in my study and talking to coaches and talking to kids, it usually leads to something happening in the background that we don't know about. More work, more film study, and putting in more time, taking, off-season regimen more seriously, diet, nutrition. Just the guys who work the hardest have the most success. They talk about Cam Kitchens all the time. He's first guy in, last guy out. And that's, a common cliche, but the more you prepare for games, the better you are mentally, physically, you have the most success. And that's good because now if you have a Corey Couch who arguably is like the number 3 guy in your starting defensive back rotation, and he's having so much success, all that's going to do is push Davis, Porter, Brown, and everybody else to be better. And that's what you want, the competitive depth of a team, everybody being their very best, and it contributes to wins and holding up the U like that. Restrepo's doing right now.
Absolutely. The all South Florida defensive backfield has been pretty good this season with Daryl Porter Jr., James Williams, once Cam Kitchens returns, of course, and of course Jaden Davis, along with to Corey Couch have all looked pretty good so far, and that level of play has to continue for the rest of this season, especially with ACC play coming up. Another area in which Miami has kind of dominated is the run game, and this is on both sides of the ball, Brandon. I mean, they have run for 200 yards, over 200 yards in 3 games this,
Yeah.
this season. And in total, they haven't given up 200 yards this season. So that's pretty good. And if you know football, if anybody knows anything about football, 2 areas that you want to do well in is running the football and stopping the run. And Miami's excelling in both of those areas. Surprised or not surprised about that?
Yeah, I am surprised because, again, we didn't know what this offensive line would look like. You got some freshmen, true freshmen, involved. You got a lot of pieces coming from other places. Rivers been pretty steady his entire career here at Miami, but, you got pieces. You got Cohen, you got Lee, you got, the freshmen. You got all these pieces that are brand new with a quarterback and trying to gel. You got a new running back coach. There's so many things going on in that run game. New offensive coordinator. So I'm pleasantly surprised with what I see from Miami in regard to the run game. Now it's been a little bit on the men, so to speak, with bringing back, Don Chaney hasn't played a lot of football. This is the most football he's ever played, going back to his senior year in high school. And then now you're getting Mark Fletcher, who looked pretty good late in the Temple game. Got a touchdown taken away. That's crazy. Got to be disciplined there. But, and then you have, Parrish, who's been the workhorse like he was last year. But the difference between last year and this year, Parrish doesn't have to do it all himself. And now he gets some help from capable guys. And I'm not going to lie, man, CJ looks good coming in as that 4th back. I mean, he's had some pretty good 4th quarters in the previous 2 weeks. And so, yeah, it's against lesser competition, but it's still nice to have a different dimension every time you bring a new back in. Nobody does the same things, and so it's been nice, a pleasant surprise, a much needed surprise. You have to be balanced to win difficult football games. You got to run the ball. And then let me tease ahead to something. I think this is where Florida State's going to be in trouble down the line. They are falling in love with winning games in the air, and they're not developing the run game that they've been known for in previous seasons. When it gets tough, if you can run the ball, you can run out of the stadium with a win. And so this is something Miami is going to want to continue to develop. It is not flashy. It is not awesome. Even with Tyler Van Dyke being like that other added element, yes, let him run the football, because now it's got to stay in the back of someone's mind that this guy could pull it and he can get 15 yards. And that helps the entire offense open up. So you got to be a run team if you're going to win close games. You got to be able to do it. Ohio State ran a game. They won a game running the ball, right down the throat. Now, granted, nobody was on the field. I mean, they played the game. They played the play with 10 guys instead of 11. But, it does help to be able to run the football.
How does that happen? I don't understand how that happens. 2 plays in a row.
Miami fans will give you 2 words, but,
2 golden words, I think.
2 golden words, the golden rule. But that's not on the DC. There are a million analysts. There are people in the box. You got to earn your money, man. Hey, we don't have enough. Somebody's got to yell down. Hey, because we've seen if you cover football for any length of time, that's not on the DC. He's looking at his call sheet. He's trying to figure out what play, what offense they're running. He's not control of personnel. That's on the DN coach, the D tackles coach. Somebody, one of these analysts. But I can guarantee that person didn't have a good weekend.
Can guarantee that for sure. So we'll see how Miami kind of navigates through this ACC schedule, and I do believe I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I do believe they go through this entire month of October unscathed. Now, November, I think, is a different story. I think Louisville is actually a lot better than people think. They're also undefeated. And then Florida State obviously is going to be a tough game in Tallahassee. And then Boston College is kind of a sneaky trap game as well. The day after Thanksgiving, it's going to be an early kick. It has all the signs of an upset to right now. So we'll see how
looks like the Pitt game all over again from the 10-0 season. But I mean, there's a long way to go. But yes, let me say this because no one's really ready to do this. Every one of Miami's remaining games is winnable. If Clemson's beatable and Florida State barely beat Clemson, North Carolina is not the juggernaut we thought they were going to be.
Sure.
North Carolina State, decent team, but not, again, Georgia Tech, not the cellar dweller we thought they'd be, but you get them at home at night. These are all winnable games.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to like. I think that's where I'm ready to stop. Not saying you're going to win these games, but It's not like you're coming into these games like there's no way Miami's ready to beat Clemson. We're not saying that anymore.
Exactly.
We're not saying that. There's no way this team can go on the road and beat Florida State, a rival. We're no longer saying that. But I like the way the schedule is slowly building, guiding along, help building up the depth, help building up. Because, again, my biggest key, and I think we talked about this the last time I was on, you got to have playmakers to win big games. And I think you're developing more and more playmakers on offense and some on defense. I love the way James Williams is playing. You got a lot of couch making plays is the best thing that could happen.
Absolutely.
That gives you probably, and you hate to say your worst, but your lowest rated guy as a starter on defense is making plays.
Right.
You got to be happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how it all plays out. We'll take it game by game, just like the coaching staff says. But going into a bye week this week, certainly a lot to be happy about if you are a Miami Hurricanes fan. And to add on to a point you made about the running game, Javion Cohen said earlier in the week, you bring your running game with you on the road. you don't leave home without your running game. And that's something that does travel. And I think that's an aspect of this team that will keep them in games for this entire season.
Absolutely.
So Brandon Odoi, once again, joining me from footballhotbed.com. You were at one of the biggest games of South Florida last week in Chaminade-Madonna against Miami Central. I saw it all go down, on TV. So I had a sense of kind of what the feeling was on the field, because I'm sure it was an electric atmosphere. What were your thoughts coming from that game, especially from the Miami commits in this one, from Zaquan to JoJo to what you saw from Armando Blunt and Vincent Schaefers?
I think that the biggest takeaway is that Miami is so fortunate to be getting Zaquan Patterson. That kid now, he's an incredible prospect, just incredible. They get beat without Zaquan, and at the end of the day, he was just not allowing the forward running back, and their names are crazy because they're all kind of similar, and I know he's the youngest one, but this Zaquan kid has range, he has speed, he's super tough, he's smart. I mean,
he's got that dog. I don't like it.
Huh? Oh, no, he's got the dog. He's got the South Florida dog. There's nothing I don't like about this kid. Every time I see him play, I fall more and more in love with his game. I saw him play at Northwestern live in person. He does this freakish pick six, because you're like, what plays does he make? Well, he comes across the middle like this is a goal line. They're running a slant on him. And without getting a PI, he kind of holds the defender in the back where ref can't see and blocks the ball with his front end. I mean, that's as technical as you can be. It's textbook.
Yeah.
That dude is the truth. There's going to be no fall off. He's going to walk right in, I feel, to this defensive backfield I don't want to be too high on him because I don't want to have people be like, "Oh, you said this, that." He's still not a college kid, but for a high school prospect, he's definitely near the top. And the best thing is he's got the size right now. He can get bigger, but he doesn't have to get any bigger to be an immediate impact guy as a freshman. So he played well. Armando Blunt had moments you didn't see a ton from him because he just had a great scheme of doubling him all night. Shavers didn't get beat in coverage. They've kind of got Shavers playing in like sort of a nickel defensive back role there. He's not even really playing true linebacker. So a lot that's going on with him, you really can't tell. And then Josiah Trader, again, this is not going to be popular. He's a dog at defensive back. I mean, I know he's being brought to Miami as a receiver. And he had that great one-handed catch over the middle. He's kind of floundering in this offense. He's not really a target. They spend a lot of time going to JJ Smith. They spend a lot of time going to Kyle Washington. Even the sophomore kid from Palm Beach gets a lot more targets. But when he got in on defense, that was the thing that really shut LaWayne McCoy down because he's so, he's a glove. Like he's really right on top of you as a defensive back. So good problem to have for Mario Cristobal and staff. But yeah, that was a tremendous game.
Yeah, he does have his moments at defensive back, but every time I speak to him, he says, he's not trying to run after people on the college level. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be locked in playing receiver. Right before I let you go, man, just it was obvious to me who the most valuable player was in this game, and that was Jeremiah Smith. He's just an outstanding talent, but CJ Bailey showed something in this game as well. Now, Miami's not, pursuing a Bailey, but your perspective on just JJ's impact and what he could potentially be for this Miami class if they can flip him, and then just generally your thoughts on CJ Bailey and his development.
Well, okay, so I'm glad you asked this question because JJ Smith tweeted this weekend at some point. I don't know. There's a lot of tweets out there, but he said Cedric Bailey is one of the best. He may have said the best quarterback in the nation. Okay. Wow. And he is trying to let people understand and know this guy's been undervalued. So a part of me thinks, and this is to me, I think this has nothing to do with Jeremiah Smith. I think if you're going to take a developmental prospect that's 6 whatever, you need to take a guy out of your backyard. I am not in the Judd Anderson. I'm not in that camp. You know what I mean? You got a guy who sat here and never lost 10 games in his whole life. He's sitting right here. He's almost the exact same size. He may be off by an inch. He's 6'5". He's still got to develop. You know what I mean? Meaning his body type or what have you. He's played around all of the guys that you're getting, Chance Robinson, Josiah Trader, and a guy you want in Jeremiah Smith. How are you not tendering him? Like, how are you not beating down his doors? And he continues to stack national performances together. The lights are never too bright. The biggest thing for CJ Bailey that I was questioning is his toughness. He took some really monster hits. Yeah. First drive of the game, LaWayne McCoy, boom, right in his grill, like just hit him to the ground.
Right.
And he got his cage rattled in the St. Francis game earlier this year, and you could tell he was kind of wobbly. I talked to Frank Tucker, your colleague, and I was like, hey, he's like, you think CJ got hurt? I was like, shoot, yeah, he got hurt. Like, you can look at him. He's kind of like needing a moment. But he was tough during this game. Yeah. He did not give up. He took the hits, and he continued to play. And that's just over the time, continuing to play better, continuing to be out there, playing great teams. Because, their schedule is about to, do a nosedive. Like, they play Coconut Creek, which is a really good team, and then they won't play another real team until maybe the Geico series because they're going to blow past everybody. But at the end of the day, I'm high on CJ Bailey. And maybe, and I'll leave this segment alone by just saying this, maybe you flip CJ Bailey and it gets you a Jeremiah Smith. I don't think you do it for that reason. I think you should do it anyway, but maybe you get 2 for 1. Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, CJ Bailey is, well, what I like about him is that he keeps his eyes downfield. He extends plays.
Yeah.
And because he extends plays, his 5-star receivers out there are usually able to get open, and that's kind of how they get their money. But yeah, I agree with you. If especially to the point that you made about getting a developmental type of quarterback in Judd Anderson, he is, a 3-star prospect who has potential to be great. And that's the exact same thing that you're saying about CJ Bailey. And he's right here in the backyard. Chaminade is, I don't know what they're ranked right now, but they have to be in the top 3 or 4 in the nation.
Yeah, they are.
So there's tons of kids in the 2025 class that Miami is interested in on that Chaminade-Madonna team as well. So you want to continue. I mean, obviously you got 2 kids already, but you kind of want to continue this pipeline that will not stop over there in Hollywood. So I just think, why not? Why not take another quarterback anyway? Last year you did have 2 quarterbacks in the class all the way almost up until the end here. So I don't see any reason why they don't, take a chance on him, especially since Judd Anderson is not this 5-star blue chip type of talent. So we'll see how it all shakes out in the end.
Absolutely. If you're going to develop a guy in your backyard. It only makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Brandon Odoi, ladies and gentlemen, to kindly join me on the Storm Tracker podcast. Once again, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on all platforms. Subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Subscribe to the website, canescounty.com, for free. Use the promo code Miami30 as you see scrolling at the bottom there. Brandon, thanks again for joining me on this episode, and look forward to seeing you again.
See you soon, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast.